there's one shadow mistake almost every beginner makes. They focus on details before understanding the main shadow shape, and that single mistake can make even good drawings look flat and confusing. In today's video, I'll break down this mistake step by step and explain why it happens, how it affects your artwork, and what you should do instead. I'll show you a simple, practical approach to building shadows that adds clarity, depth, and structure to your drawings. By the end of this video, you'll have a much better understanding of how to see and paint shadows in a clean, professional way, and your shading will instantly start to look stronger and more confident. So a lot of people treat shadows as small, individual shapes. Right from the beginning, they try to understand shadows by breaking them into many tiny pieces and working on each one separately. But in reality, a shadow is usually one big, connected shape. If you observe carefully, you'll notice that shadows don't randomly break apart. They follow the form of the object and describe its structure. In fact, you've probably seen drawings where the artist explains the entire object using shadows alone. The depth, the volume, and the three-dimensional form become clear without any extra details. That's why it's important to see shadows as a single, unified mass, instead of many small, disconnected shapes. Even when the object itself is small or complex, the shadow should be understood as a larger, simplified form. When we divide shadows into too many tiny parts, the drawing starts to look noisy and flat. It loses clarity. But when we treat the shadow as one strong shape, the drawing feels more solid, more readable, and more realistic. So before adding details, always block in the shadow as one big shape first. Once that foundation is clear, you can slowly refine edges, add variations, and adjust values. But the main shadow shape should always stay intact. This way, your drawings will look cleaner, more confident, and much more professional. Now let's look at a demonstration on a digital artwork and apply what we've learned so far. As you can see, I currently have a drawing with no shadows applied at all. Before adding any details, I'll start by focusing on the big shadow shapes. Using the lasso tool, I begin by clearly defining these large shadow areas. Notice how I'm not thinking about small details at this stage. I'm only blocking in the major shadow shapes. You can already see how much three-dimensionality this adds to the drawing. Even without details, the form starts to feel more solid and more believable. One important thing to remember is that wherever we paint shadows, we should always keep the details minimal. Shadow areas naturally contain less information, which is why they should remain simple and clean. So always keep this in mind. Whenever you're working in shadow areas, focus on less detail and stronger shapes. This approach will help your artwork look cleaner, more professional, and more realistic. Now I'll start defining the shadows around the nose area. Along with some shadows on the opposite side of the face. I'll gradually push a slightly darker tone toward this side to make the shadows more prominent and enhance the three-dimensional effect. Next, I'll add a bit of controlled detailing to refine these shadow shapes. And as you can see, this step alone adds a significant amount of depth to the artwork. The shadows now look much cleaner, stronger, and more intentional. You can also notice that on the darker side of the face, the details are kept minimal, which helps maintain clarity and realism. So remember, shadows aren't about adding more details. They're about understanding the main shape first. When you begin with big, simple shadow forms, you create a strong foundation for your drawing. Everything else, soft edges, value changes, and subtle details, should come only after that foundation is in place. Once you start thinking in this way, your shading will instantly look cleaner, stronger, and more realistic. Your drawings will feel more three-dimensional, more readable, and much more confident. This small shift in how you see shadows can make a huge difference in your artwork.